All right, this is take two. You're not going to see me this time because I'm sharing my screen with you. So this is what women moms overlook about social skills in boys. If you're just tuning in, we had some technical problems before, so I'm kind of starting over. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. One of my former students came down to visit me this summer, and this is what he said when I started telling him more about what I do, because I really don't talk much about, what I do with people unless they ask. And I was talking to him about the whole social skills stuff. And here's what he said. When I was in middle school, sorry, I just need to do one thing first, real quick. Comments, because I want to enable comments. Okay. There we go. All right, now we're good. So he said, when I was in middle school, my mom used to tell me to ask kids in school stuff like, "Did you see any movies this weekend?" Or she'd say, "Ask them about their life and what they like doing outside of school." Yeah, school district actually I went through and my son went through. It was for the special. I did it. A mom came up to me. And said this to me. She said, I watched my son go up to a group of boys in his kindergarten class and said, "May I join you?" That really got to me because I knew that's what he was being taught in his social skills group, and boys would never say that to each other. And again, she's right. Lynn Turkstra, Dr. Lynn Turkstra is a speech language pathologist. And just real quick, so you know, the social skills field really evolved out of the speech language pathology field. And then kind of, somewhere along the way, people, the ADHD world kind of jumped on board with it, or I should say, really, mental health professionals started recommending social skills groups without knowing a whole lot about the social learning field. And this really resonated with me because this is very accurate. So she said, that's what made me very mindful of, are we a bunch of female clinicians imposing our idea of the gold standard of social behavior on a mostly male client population, and is that okay? And that's really kind of what the social skills field is. It is probably, 95% female professionals, whether guidance counselors, speech language pathologists, therapists, teaching social skills primarily to boys. And what I have seen happened over the years is that, over and over, what I see is this, boys being taught this overly formal etiquette and this scripted social communication that just makes them, that doesn't sound natural to them. Okay. Common objections I hear from mothers. Whenever I talk about this this topic of social skills, I always get pushback from this. I always get pushback from mothers, and I did this weekend when I posted something. And just so you know, when there's negative comments left on my social media, I just delete it because my thing is I'm not going to give attention to negativity. And I don't spend hours each week creating content for people to debate it. So here's some of the common objections I hear. I'm not going to tell him to stop talking about his interests. That's basically telling him to stop communicating with me. No, it's actually teaching him that when you have a two-way conversation with somebody, you're engaging them. Whereas if you have a one-way conversation, the other person's going to get bored, and they're probably not going to want to talk with you. And by the way, this is part of the reason a lot of kids with ADHD start gravitating towards younger kids or adults, because younger kids will listen to them kind of have a one-way conversation, or as I say, be an information informer about their topics of interest. And adults will sit there and be polite and nod and listen while they talk at them. Their same age peers will not do that. I don't want to hurt his feelings. So my answer to the I don't want to hurt his feelings is this. Your son can learn, social appropriateness from you, or he can learn it from other kids in school. If he, or, wherever. If he learns it from other kids, they are probably not going to be really empathetic about it, or going to try to teach him in a nice way. It's probably going to, come as being ridiculed or being left out or so on. My personal preference is that he learns this from somebody he knows who loves him unconditionally rather than from learning it from kids in school. Whenever I talk about reading the field or situational awareness, I get this one. I don't want him to feel like he has to conform and follow the crowd. And, what I say to that is conformity is part of life, right? We have to adapt to different situations. The way we behave at work socially is different than the way we behave at home. The way we interact with a good friend is different than the way we would interact with a, group of people. So conformity is part of life. And when people say that to me, my answer is, well, if you don't want him to ever conform and you just want him to always be able to be himself, make sure he has a skill set to be able to work independently and have his own business. Okay. Another big one, I tell him to insert whatever social behavior here, but he doesn't listen. And what I say to that is, did you always listen to everything your mother or your father said, particularly when it came to, things about other kids? Maybe, maybe not. I certainly didn't. Another one, his father says leave him alone. Kids don't get together anymore like they used to, and all of them are just gaming all the time. Absolutely not true. Kids still do get together. Um, the last one I want to mention to you is without fail, every June, I start having parents reach out to me because the school year's ending saying, I thought this was the year he'd grow out of this, or I thought this was the year he would grow up. So now another school year has gone by where they did a lot of wishful thinking and realized that things didn't change. Okay. So this is how social skills naturally develop through unstructured play and hanging out that where adults are not directing things. You see in this playground picture, right? There's no adults here. I got this on purpose. Now, if this was a real elementary school playground, there would be, eight recess aides around, and they're usually, on the kids with ADHD saying, "Don't do this, stop that," "Ryan, don't do this, whatever, time out." Okay. But this is the way that kids learn how to negotiate play. It's also, by the way, how they develop executive function skills. So both social skills and executive function skills are developed through unstructured play and hanging out, not through scheduled activities like soccer or this or that, but through this. Okay, this is not how social skills develop. They don't develop in a group or by doing, collaborative, group games. And just so you know, research has shown that social skills groups are not effective for kids with ADHD. And this I took this flyer off the internet of a social skills group, so I just want to read it real quick. What's on here? This 10-week group therapy program will help boys develop social skills. Topics include friendships, communication, conflict resolution, taking responsibility, recognizing and expressing feelings, self-esteem, decision making, and responsibility. Okay. What I would say is I think that's fine if a guidance counselor wants to do that in school with like a group of boys. This is not teaching social skills though. But here's the other thing I want to mention to you because this is really a big pet peeve of mine. I can't stand when I see this recognizing and expressing feelings because, it's basically saying, well, because they're boys, they must be emotionally illiterate. That's not my experience at all. But I do find a lot of female therapists tend to put this in, that their literature. So, other things, just so you don't improve social skills by having an adult facilitate the conversation or game. Most of the kids I know who have some kind of social skills group in school, what it typically is like the speech language pathologist or the guidance counselor facilitating a game and kind of like facilitating the discussion. That's fine. It's not how you develop social skills. Um, Being around peers with more developed social skills. In every IEP and 504 plan I read that has something about social skills in it, it will say something like, Ryan will, be seated near positive peer role models. What I want you to know is you don't pick up social skills by osmosis. If they could do that, right, then they wouldn't have any social learning challenges. Social learning challenges, for those of you who don't know, is a term I use for difficulty with social skills. Let me just get a drink real quick. Another big one. You don't improve social skills by role playing good social skills. And here's why. Every social interaction is context dependent. Like I was saying before, we modify our communication, our interactions based on who we're with and the context of the situation. So if you were going to role play, you have to basically role play like every single permutation of a situation, right? And that's not realistic. Okay. What I often find with the guys I work with, second grade tends to be when other kids start to notice social learning challenges. However, most parents do not see this as an issue until about fifth grade. I would say more frequently now, I'm hearing parents identify this pretty early. And just so you know, the reason for that is, second grade is 7 to 8 years old. That's when developmentally kids start realizing, I like him, I don't like him, she's nice to me, she's mean to me. They start to become aware of these things, and they start realizing that this whole language we use when we're younger of saying like, okay friends, it's time for recess, okay friends, it's time to get out your math book, they realize, no, not everybody's my friend. All right. In fifth grade, social expectations increased. There's more interest in being part of a same sex peer group. And this is when a lot of the guys I work with often start to become more socially isolated. One of the things I tell parents is I expect things to go south socially the second half of fifth grade. So basically, starting right now, if it didn't happen already. What I often see in middle school, if it didn't happen in fifth grade, sixth grade is when former friends start to find new friends and invitations tend to stop. A lot of boys begin retreating into the virtual world for connection with others who share similar interests. And again, yes, kids still hang out. This picture is actually from my How to Hang Out program. All right, so I want to tell you just real briefly about the male social communication template. I'm going to show you some videos. So some things that are different about how the way males communicate with males is they ask direct specific questions rather than broad experiential questions. I should really say this is more, with boys because obviously with adults there's more formality. So as an example, let's say they're talking about an amusement park. A kid would say to another kid, "Did you go on Superman?" They wouldn't say, "How was your trip to Six Flags?" You see how that's kind of a broad experiential question? Boys don't talk like that. All right. What game system do you have? Okay, normal question, not do you like playing video games? And by the way, that line, do you like playing video games? That's a lot of what I hear coming from social skills groups. All right. And again, because this is, I do believe that women tend to, one of my colleagues once said this to me and it really resonated. She said to me, women tend to connect over experiences or emotions. Men tend to connect over things. And I've always remembered that. So some other things, just so you know, boys can be part of a group with saying very little. That's why those who are a little quieter or those who have what's called slower processing can be socially successful. Girls with slower processing have more trouble with this, just so you know, because excuse me, the rate of conversation back and forth with girls tends to be much more rapid, and they tend to use more descriptive language. Um, Formal greetings are not necessary. Entering a group with a nod or a two-word greeting is acceptable. Also, just going up and randomly saying something is totally acceptable as well. So initiation of communication often begins with direct, specific questions, often without any formal introduction or greeting. Establishing physical presence can be done the same way. And here's a really important part I want you to remember. Humor is a great equalizer for boys. So having a quick wit, willingness to push the social boundaries a little bit, or physical humor can elevate one's social status. That's why a lot of boys with ADHD tend to become the class clown, because they realize I can get attention this way, right? And it can elevate me a little bit. So the problem is, right, they don't always discern when somebody is laughing at them versus with them. All right, so this video, this was from a documentary done in the UK, and what it was, they put 20 boys together, 20 12-year-old boys together in a house for the weekend with no adults. Now, you have to imagine, right, because this was going to be on TV, they told the boys to, go crazy, okay? But what I want you to notice in here is that this is when they first get here, okay, they're already playing, but they don't know each other's names. Watch how they greet each other in this, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this sound. Okay, so I don't know if you could hear that, but so basically, right, they started playing. They didn't even know each other's names yet. And when they did introduce each other, it was very informal. Some other things I want you to know. Boys very rarely compliment each other and never in front of other boys, except for a few specific topics. That is what's called breaking a hidden rule. So I want to tell you a story about that real quick. One of the boys who came to my How to Hang Out program, he, had gotten a lot of help for social skills when he was younger. And he was in seventh grade at the time, and he went up to actually another boy in school who I also worked with, and he said to this other boy who was like with some other kids, at his locker, he said, "Oh, I like those pants you're wearing today. They look good on you." Well, this other boy went nuts, and it became this whole issue, and he started screaming at him and whatever. Why? Because he embarrassed him, right? Because he broke a hidden rule. You don't, compliment another guy in front of a group of kids like that, particularly on something they're wearing. Okay. Another thing, consistent eye contact would be unexpected. Guys can have full conversations without looking at each other for the most part. This is one of the reasons, by the way, I want to explain to you why therapy tends to not be boy friendly. Because having to sit still in a chair across somebody and being expected to make eye contact the whole time is not the way most boys operate. Okay, and or how they certainly kind of talk about things of more substance. Lulls in conversations are acceptable, as are periods without talking when there's a shared distraction, such as like TV show, video, whatever. Boys rarely use I statements when talking about feelings with other guys, so there's not a lot of "I feel this" or "I feel that." And so when I hear that like guidance counselors are, teaching kids use I statements, it drives me crazy because it's just not organic to the way they talk. So I mentioned before they don't ask broad experiential questions. So, and they don't ask questions that require the recipient to express a current internal emotional state. So things like, how do you feel about that? That's not the way boys communicate with each other. Expressions of friendship and affection. So using nicknames or friendly name calling, friendly teasing, which is often called roasting or burning. Yes, there is a very fine line between roasting that's meant to be, playful and show affection, and then roasting, which becomes hurtful or can be considered bullying. Displays of affection are typically reserved for those with higher social status or those who are secure enough with themselves. Uh, this is how I teach the discerning between friendly and mean teasing or roasting. I say mean teasing or roasting is done by somebody who doesn't know you well and wants to make a joke at your expense about you or embarrass you. Excuse me. If somebody calls you a nickname or teases you and they make an effort to be around you, then their intention is to be friendly. Okay, so that's really the key part here. If they're doing that but they're making an effort to be around you or talk to you, their intention is to be friendly and talk to you in a nice way. Do you know what I mean? Like of sharing interest and so on. So I just want to show you a few things. You are welcome to ask questions. Do I have this set up? Yeah. Okay. Just if you want to ask questions, you can type them in now. Please keep them as concise as possible. Please include your son or daughter's age, because whether they're a boy or girl is going to, it's my answer for you is going to vary based on that. And please just keep it topic related. Um, So another thing I want you to know is, and I'm going to show you a quick video about this, communicating about relationship status or anything that can cause vulnerability often needs to be done through using humor so it feels less vulnerable. I can tell you that was definitely the case for myself when I was younger, probably until I got to high school. Okay. Same documentary, and I think this is probably like the second to last day. And this boy here is kind of like upset with the other ones because like just kind of they wouldn't let him sleep the night before because they were being loud and so on. So I hope you can hear this because this is really good. Let me just make sure the sound is turned up. Okay. Okay, so you saw, he was trying to, I think he was trying to apologize to this boy. He was trying to make him feel better, right? But it had to be done with a little bit of silliness in it, right? Because he's expressing vulnerability, you know. Um, so, few things just to finish up. I wanted to mention just about, elementary school, middle school, high school. Um, So, first thing in elementary school, as I mentioned, social and executive function skills develop through unstructured play or hanging out where an adult is not directing things. Um, Teach what I want you to do is teach about being a good guest and a good host with an emphasis about helping your guest host to have clutch thoughts about you rather than cringy thoughts. Clutch thoughts are when somebody feels comfortable around us and wants to be around us. I have plenty of videos about this. Okay. And so really that's my big thing, that I want kids to learn how to be a good host and a good guest so they get more play dates or somebody wants to come over again. Because what I hear a lot is a lot of, the kid who's the guest just has to follow along. I've heard a lot of kids just playing video games where their guest just watches them. That's not okay. The other thing I want to encourage you, parents of elementary schoolers, is help your son set up get togethers when we have get togethers again, okay, by creating the scaffolding instead of doing it for him. So plan out what's going to happen, what he's going to say, what he's going to ask, when he sends the text or whatever, because when you do that, you're teaching him, how to communicate better, but that's also executive functioning. You're teaching him how to plan ahead. Okay. The other thing, and I have to say, for those of you who have, been in the group for a while, I haven't really addressed hovering as much as I should, and I really need to do a better job of this. I find that, hovering is a really significant issue in a lot of families of kids with ADHD. And I hear a lot of parents hovering over kids during play dates. Okay. Think about this and why I'm saying it's not appropriate. How do you think the other kid feels if you are standing there watching their interactions the whole time? How would you feel when you were younger if you went over somebody's house and you were just playing a game or doing whatever and their mother was watching you the entire time? It would probably make you uncomfortable. Okay. If you need to pull your son aside, that's totally fine. Okay. But pull him aside, instead of hovering. Some things with middle school, out of sight, out of mind is very applicable to many kids. What I mean by that is that they might have friends in school who they like being with, they enjoy spending time with, but when they're not with them, they're not thinking about them. Okay. And that's really an aspect of executive functioning. So remember, I talk about kids with ADHD have difficulty recalling past experiences and the emotions associated with those experiences. Okay. And they have difficulty with future thinking skills, or what we call nonverbal working memory. So, for instance, I'll hear a lot of times a kid will, say they just often don't even think to invite anybody over because they're just not thinking about them when they're not around them. Or I'll hear them like ask their parent like 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, can Jack come over? Not thinking like maybe they should have asked days ago, right? Because they're not thinking about that. Again, in middle school, I teaching about being a good guest, good host, really important still. So you can check out I have plenty of videos about this. The one about out of sight, out of mind. I have a video called I think it's called "Dude, Your Friends Want to Hear from You." It's in the Dude Talk playlist, which is my playlist for kids. And you can also see videos of me teaching some of these concepts to the kids during camp. If you go to the Dude Talk playlist, and some parents have told me that their sons like watching them because they like seeing the kids their age in them and hearing the kids answer. Other thing for middle school, okay? It's no longer appropriate for you to set up play dates, and it's not helping your son improve his social executive function skills if you're doing that. But here's the most important part why you shouldn't be doing that, okay? When your son reaches out to another kid, it says to the other kid, I like you, I want to spend time with you. When you do that for him, right, it's not sending the kid that message because you're basically organizing it with the other kid's parents, okay? So really what I say is starting in fifth grade, kids need to learn how to, to start facilitating get-togethers on their own. Obviously you have to be involved in this, okay? But please, fifth grade, stop with the, organizing play dates or get-togethers for them, all right? And again, middle school, no hovering. Okay, it's going to make the other kid feel uncomfortable. They're going to be more restricted. They're not going to feel like they can be themselves if you're there, constantly checking on them or micromanaging things or hovering over them. Uh, where's my high school? Okay. I do find for guys in high school, out of sight, out of mind is still applicable to many kids. I do find that social motivation often increases around 14, 15. So typically, eighth grade during that time. And again, I have videos for guys this age in the Trip Camp playlist where they can see the videos of the kids their age from the summer. The other thing I want to mention, I'm not going to get into here because this is a topic in itself. There is a difference between social anxiety and social learning challenges. Social anxiety is at its core, it's a fear of being judged by others. Social learning challenges are when you don't learn social information intuitively from a young age. They have to be treated differently. Is it possible for somebody to have both? Yes. But there's also plenty of people with ADHD who have fine social skills but struggle with social anxiety. All right. Um, One of the most important things without getting into social anxiety here is to not accommodate it. Okay, so if you suspect your son has social anxiety, do not let him avoid social experiences. Make sure he participates in activities like youth group or scouts or whatever it might be. Okay, it's really important. And I shouldn't have to say hovering during get-togethers in high school is a big no-no. All right. So real quick, just a reminder, I do have a new webinar series coming out. It is my parent behavior management program called Raising Great Dudes. It is going to be the first parent behavior program ever specifically for kids with ADHD. The other ones that are out there are not specifically for kids with ADHD. And that's going to be available on my new membership site. And wait, let me see if I can pull up my membership site. Hold on. So I can show you. It's not up yet, but it's kind of there. So hold on one second. Let me see. Is this? Oh, all right. So this is going to be the membership site when it's available. And that'll be, and I think probably 2 to 3 weeks. So what will be on there to start is the executive function crash course series. And then very shortly after it is going to be raising great dudes. After that is going to be my social skills webinar series to help you help your son improve his social skills. That will not take as long for me to put together because there's a lot of parts of the behavior one, and this is so it just rolls off because it's my favorite topic to talk about. So I'm going to look forward to putting that out. After the social skills one, the next one I'm going to do is about anxiety and helping you learn how to help your son get through anxiety. All right. So I'm going to answer some questions. So Libby said, should we encourage our son to reach out to friends who have decided not to include him or move on? I would say move on, okay, because if they're not including him, they're not including him. I mean, he can always try with like a text, but if he's not getting a response yet, I say it's time to move on. And here's the really big thing I say about this, and I tell kids, I say the first time I meet them, if I know I'm going to be working on social, I say there's guys out there who want to be friends with you. Okay, they might not know that yet, and it is your job and your responsibility to show them why you can be a good friend and why they should be friends with you. Okay, but I'd say there's absolutely guys in your school who do want to be friends with you. Beverly asks, best place to begin your process with a 7-year-old in first grade. Great ideas for older kids. Not sure where to begin with younger ones. Yeah, Beverly, I'm laughing because whatever I put out there, people think it's not for their kids' age. A lot of what I talked about here was for elementary school. So the whole thing about unstructured play. That is really kind of the best thing, even if that's just playing on a playground. And one of the things we have to teach is around, I mean, I don't know for your son, but teaching flexibility around play. Being able to play along with other kids' imaginative games, that's huge for first grade. So those types of things. What I will say regarding first grade, if anybody's going to have the skill set to be able to help develop reciprocal play skills, it's going to be an occupational therapist. So what I would suggest, Beverly, look to see in your area if there's any OTs doing play groups that kind of help kids develop play. But make sure to ask about the makeup of the group, because there's a lot of these one size fits all groups out there where you have a kid with pronounced autism, with a kid with ADHD, and they're not matched evenly. Okay, so that's the one thing I would tell you about that. Regina said, 11-year-old boy. I agree. Social skills happen when interacting with others. Being only school 2 days a week with mass. Yeah. So I'm just real quick. I'm not going to really get into the virtual school related stuff right here. Just because, to be honest, I want this video to be able to last for years and not just be specific to the situation. What I will say real quick is anything kids are missing out right now, they will get back on course. Okay, everyone will catch up with this. And I agree with what Regina said. This is a crucial year socially, and the kids, they're going to just kind of start off where they need to when they go back. Okay. Next one. What are good ways for high school freshmen during COVID to make friends? Yeah. So Again, Jacqueline, I'm just, not that I want to skip over your question. I'm just not, I don't want to get into answering, specific COVID related stuff right now. Um, Kim said, my 8-year old is very overwhelming to other kids and he always wants to play what he wants. What can I do? So, Kim, that's a lack of perspective taking, right? He's not thinking about the other kid's thoughts. So, what you have to teach him, and this is what's going to be covered in my social skills webinar, you have to teach him the sequence of events, right? And help him understand other kids' thoughts when he's being bossy or he's not playing what they want. You have to help him understand that they're not going to want to play with him eventually. And then he's not going to feel good about himself when they don't want to play with him. Okay. And the other thing you need to do really is start, sharing your internal dialogue more around perspective taking so he understands what it sounds like. Uh, so, Jenna said, how do I get my middle schooler to branch out? He only has a couple friends he wants to hang out with. Jenna, that's completely normal, and I would say you don't need to do anything. That sounds fine to me. My 7-year old, Madeline said, my 7-year old just does not like to say hi or bye, whether it's to strangers, someone he loves to play with. I try to work on this with him. Yeah, so that's a great question, Madeline. I actually have experience with this because my cousin Jesse was the same way when he was younger. No, don't make him. What I will say is that he will grow out of this eventually, in my experience. Okay, this is a temporary thing. It's just some discomfort about not knowing how to jump in or exit conversations. And this is an aspect, by the way, of social learning challenges. It's difficulty initiating or ending conversations. But this, if I'm right, I think that he will grow out of this. Okay, if he doesn't, get back to me in another year, and I'll help you out. Megan said, 8-year old, when does my son learn social skills and executive functioning? You said free play, but I feel like he really struggles in those situations. So, Megan, really, again, what I would say is that's kind of the only way that you do this, okay? He's not going to learn it playing Candyland in a therapist's office with other kids while, therapist is prompting them to have conversations. If you want to look for OTs in your area again, that's who I would say for younger kids who is really most equipped to be able to help develop reciprocal play skills. Okay, but it has to be in a group situation. It can't be them and just like the OT. All right. Um, my 14-year-old son is very overwhelming to other kids and has been since he was little. Very common. Yeah, he's very social. He has a couple of friends who love coming over because I keep good snacks and drinks that are allergy friendly. All right, but my son can be very bossy. Should I stop being so nice to the kid so he can see what the effect the behavior has? I feel like I'm modeling being a good host. So I would say you are, and no, I would not tell you to stop being nice to those kids because here's the thing: they feel comfortable at your house. But here's the bigger thing I want you to understand: they're not coming over because you have good snacks. Okay, they're coming over because your son offers them something in a friendship that they can hold on to. So he probably is a little overbearing. That's a common thing that I didn't talk about in here, but a lot of guys with an ADHD, because they tend to live in big emotions, they tend to be very loyal friends and it can be overwhelming. They also tend to be clingy and get jealous easily, okay? But keep in mind that your son is offering them something in a friendship and that's why they're coming over. They're not coming just because you have good snacks, I promise, even though that would be an incentive for me. Um, so, what to do? A 15-year-old son has retreated into video games, but not interested in making in-person friends. So, Kevin, in that situation, this is when I say, you have to get him into activities, and he doesn't have a, you can offer some different things and tell him he's picking one. Okay. So, ideally, those are things at school because I really want to see kids involved in school activities. I have seen theater or drama, whatever you want to call it, do amazing things for so many of the guys I've worked with. So you have to kind of push him into these things, okay? Because he can't live a virtual life in a virtual world. It's not good for him. It's not good for his mental health. And again, when he, if he's has that structure, that's probably what he needs, okay? He probably struggles with making friends without the structure, like I, talk about sometimes. So, um, okay, so Jacqueline said, let me clarify, how can a high schooler break into groups when he feels they don't want any more people there? They already have friends. He's done marching band and other group activities. So Jacqueline, that might be a little bit of social anxiety. That's an anxious thought we would call mind reading. That's something that could be, worked on. What I will tell you is social anxiety is not difficult to treat, okay? Really, my favorite modality for treating social anxiety, which is going to be my next big investment investment in training is called Team CBT, TEAM. It's an acronym. I forgot what it's for. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of people who do it. Second to that would be CBT, but keep in mind, CBT is not effective really with kids with ADHD because of the self-directed talk piece. But for his age, I think it could work. So that's what I would say to look into. Okay. So Esperanza said, can you explain the difference between social anxiety and social learning challenges again, and what to do if it's really a social learning challenge? So social anxiety is a fear of judgment by others. Okay. It's an irrational fear of judgment by others. Social learning challenges is an aspect of executive functioning. It could also be called social executive functioning. It's skills that do not develop at the same rate as their same age peers, such as perspective taking. Okay. So when you say what to do, that's a really broad question. When I meet kids, I have a whole assessment I do. So there's not one answer here. Okay. There's a lot of depth to this, and I find parents get really impatient because they want to know, like, okay, well, 6 sessions and he's going to be fine. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. You can't make up, in 12 years. If you have a 12-year-old, you can't make up in 6 months what he hasn't learned in 12 years, right? All right. Okay, Renee said, my 11-year-old perceives that no one likes him, but his teachers disagree. How do I reassure him or make him feel less anxious about people liking him? His anxiety ends up driving them away. Yeah, so Renee, one of the biggest things, I'm really glad you asked this question. Stop reassuring him, okay? Because when parents try to reassure kids, it does not make the anxiety go away. It actually makes it continue, which I know you're not trying to do, okay? But what I would say is, if you want to do something right now, look to see if there's anybody in your area who does Team CBT. I should post their website up here. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on one second. And if not, see if there's, that's what I would start with, because for his age, again, regular CBT might not work. What I do with kids, because I have training in CBT, I focus on what's called exposures, which is putting kids in increasingly uncomfortable situations, because the way you learn to get through anxiety is pushing yourself through situations and realizing that you can come through it just fine and your anxiety goes down. Okay. Kids' anxiety does not go away by letting them avoid it or by parents constantly giving them reassurance. All right. Yeah, and again, I'm going to have this program come out. I don't have a name for it yet, but it's going to be my next program after Raising Great Dudes. I'm hoping I'm going to shoot for May. I'd like to have it out, the social skills program, because I know that it's really hard for people to find good help with this, and there's really nothing out there, amazingly, specifically for kids with ADHD. And it's crazy when you think about it, because there's been awareness of ADHD for 3 decades now, and there's still nothing really specifically out there to help kids improve socially. That being said, the social learning field is also relatively new. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I greatly appreciate you being here tonight, and if you tune back in after all the technical difficulties, I promise you that won't happen again. Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care. Bye.